But Mom, how long can we wait? I've already lost my benefits. What did you give birth to me for? So I could lose my snot to the younger ones. Adriana said sharply, and immediately her tongue twisted. I'm sorry, Mommy. Her mother looked at her with tired eyes, pushed the potatoes she had cut for the chips to the other side of the chopping board. Be patient for another year. Betty will go to daycare. It'll be easier for me. Michael to school. Well, Mommy, I've already made arrangements with the neighbor. She found an apartment. She can't afford it alone, but together we can. Adriana knew it would be hard for her mother to be alone, but she let Ethan go to college. And Adriana, who graduated high school with a gold medal, kept to herself. For as long as she could remember, she had always helped her mother with her siblings. She was not even 3 years old when her mother gave birth first to Ethan, then a year later to Benjamin. A short break of 3 years and the twins Valerie and Andrei were born. Everyone thought that this is where the big family Vertenikov their stop. But 6 years later, Michael was born. And 2 years ago, Betty is the youngest. Dad was away at work for months at a time. He worked a shift in the north. He was only home 4 months a year. So it fell to her mother and the eldest Adriana to raise the children. Having finished school with a gold medal, Adriana was going to go to Moscow to enter the economic field. Teachers prophesied a brilliant future, top of the school. But a year ago, her mother fell seriously ill. All the responsibility fell on the shoulders of the eldest daughter. But now her mother was feeling well, and Adriana had a chance to enter a prestigious university. Kathy, Adriana's best friend since first grade, was also preparing for admission and could have already studied. But she failed the entrance exams that year and stayed in the village for another year. They worked together as helpers in the factory. Neither Adriana nor Kathy wanted to stay in the village and tie their lives to the only dairy factory that was here, and thanks to which the village was not dying, as many were. Moscow is Moscow. It seemed to the girls that it was there and nowhere else that they could be happy. Mom, if I don't get in, I'll come home and work full-time, and I won't go anywhere else. I promise. The mother sighed heavily. Of course she wanted the best for her daughter. She herself had once dreamed of leaving Vishnevsky, but at 17 she met her William, got pregnant, and stayed with him to raise the household. Then Vera was born, then Alex and Liam. William left the farm and went to work. The pay was good, and the family grew and grew. The daughter had already lost a year. I guess I'll have to let her go. Her daughter. Maybe it's for the best. We'll manage. As long as she gets in. Thank you, Mommy. Adriana kissed her mother on the cheek. I'll finish cutting the cabbage. Kathy will be happy. She didn't get to Kathy until the evening. She had to cook for the whole family and put Betty to bed. Then she had to take Michael for a walk while her mother cleaned up. Then laundry, games to bathe her sister. Putting on a light sweater, Adriana got on her bike and rode to the other side of the village to her best friend Kathy's house. Yay, I'm already on my suitcases. In 10 days she starts accepting papers. There's so much to do. I'm finally out of my cloaca. I thought you'd stay here until you're old enough to clean up the little one's poop. Mom asked for another year, but suddenly she changed her mind. Adriana grabbed her friend's hands and started spinning around the room. The girls laughed and danced, then fell on the bed and hugged each other. I'm so glad you're coming with me. I can't imagine what I'd be doing alone. And you're right not to. Kathy's mom came into the room. She'd gone that year without Adriana, like a tail without a dog. Adriana knew what Cindy was talking about. Kathy was a bad student, and if it weren't for her, she would hardly have been able to graduate from high school without getting straight A's. Adriana not only didn't socialize with her siblings, but also found time to tutor her friend for exams. Practically survived in the head of a feckless friend. Tickets, and in school, starting from the 5th grade, solved for her tests, wrote essays, and gave to cheat home. And in high school, while Kathy learned to smoke behind the school and appointments, in general studied for 2, managing to write essays for herself and Kathy. Unlike her friend, Adriana wasn't interested in boys at all. She liked reading books more than going to discos, and she had so little free time that she didn't want to waste it on nonsense. Girls in general were completely different in character and appearance. Adriana had her father's Eastern roots, dormant for generations. She was a searing brunette with swarthy skin, slender, tall, flexible by nature. All she had inherited from her mother were big blue eyes. They stood out so much on her swarthy shoulders that it seemed that she was always in the clouds and was scared. Adriana's character was also in her mother's calm, patient. She could sit for hours at textbooks or a book. There wasn't much time for reading. And Kathy was a redhead with light skin and a beast with green slanted eyes. She had matured early and at the age of 12 had already begun to realize the power of her beauty. She ran away from classes with high school students and made out with them behind the garages. Nature rewarded her with a lively character. She never sat still, constantly molded into some incredible stories. The girls did not know that they let Adriana go thanks to Mother Kathy, who, knowing her daughter well, realized that without a calm, judicious Adriana, her daughter is bound to get into some trouble. Already on the way to Moscow, her daughter was alone, not moderately spoiled, led from her parents' ropes, and they couldn't let her go either. But to send to study with a girl like Adriana, very much so. The night before, Cindy had come to Adriana's mom's house and started a conversation about her daughter's enrollment. When she heard that Kelly wasn't going to let her daughter leave home this year, she found plenty of reasons to talk her into it. And the most important argument was that Betty, the youngest of the Veretennikov family, would be admitted to kindergarten a little earlier than other children her age. Kathy's mother worked in the regional municipality, just like her father, and could solve this issue very quickly. And now she was absolutely calm for her daughter. 3 days later, the entire Adriana family, except for the eldest son Alex, who was studying to be a technologist in college, and Kathy's parents stood at the bus station and saw the girls off to a bright Moscow future. Little Betty clutched Adriana's legs and cried. Michael was also holding his sister's hand and trying to pay attention. Kathy chattered non-stop, describing all the delights of life without parents. The mother was crying. The boys were fighting and squealing as usual. Adriana stood in the midst of the loud crowd and wished she could get on the bus and leave. She felt sorry for her mother. She felt sorry for her little sister, who considered Adriana a second mom. She would miss her. And Portky, too, with his perpetually shattered knees. And by twins, whatever they were, bandits, now the head of the family became Liam, which was very proud due to his age, not realizing what responsibility would fall on his shoulders. And finally, the driver pro-honked, inviting those departing to take their seats. Adriana kissed them on both cheeks, promised to call every day. What's what? Michael and hugged her sister tightly. All forward into a bright future, which she will now build only by herself. The bus closed. The door of the farewellers remained in the distance. Adriana threw herself on the back of the seat and closed her eyes. The ride was 8. It was possible to sketch a plan of further actions in her head, although Adriana knew everything ahead of time. They had paid for the apartment with Kathy in advance. They had to get the keys from the landlady, move in and start looking for a job right away. There wasn't much money for housing. She'd been working at the factory all that year, but they paid the factory workers a pittance, which they spent on food and clothes for the kids. No, the family was not poor. My father earned a good living and sent money to the family on time. But sometimes I wanted to please my brothers with some harmful crap, which was in abundance on the shelves in my head. Magi or new toys for the little ones. Everything else was put off by the training. The bus traveled smoothly, despite the dirt road and Kathy's shock, and the peaceful, while bus, Adriana dozed. And then there was the bus station of the capital. Everyone was going somewhere, in a hurry, in a hurry, in a hurry. Kathy's suitcases were almost stolen. While Adriana was asking passersby for directions to Black River and running for a map, Kathy was supposed to be guarding their humble belongings, but she decided to take selfies by a large billboard and simply walked away from the bench with the suitcases. When Adriana returned, she saw their suitcases being dragged by a bearded man. When he saw the two belligerent girls, one of whom called for help from the police, he quickly retreated, dropping the suitcase at a nearby bench. Cabs were unbelievably expensive, but it was impossible to carry heavy bags in which the mothers had stuffed, among other things, potatoes and jam jars. Having ruined the car, they finally reached their apartment, where a certain old woman with the keys to the door was waiting for them with wrinkles dryly. The girls were so tired that they were half-heartedly listening to the rules of the residence, which I was muttering. The old woman had been there for about 30 minutes, and here was happiness. The door behind the landlady was closed, and they were able to look around. The apartment was one room, but quite spacious, clean. And most importantly, there was a large couch that would fit 5 people. Walking into the kitchen, opening the window, Adriana turned to Kathy. "So, happy housewarming to us. Listen, I saw a store next door. Would you like some wine to fortify yourself?" "No. Kathy, you know I don't drink. What are your plans for tomorrow?" "What do you mean?" Kathy laughed, sitting on the windowsill. "For smoking. Just to see Moscow, to show myself. Look, I've written down all the clubs I need to visit. More Arbat, Vorobiovi Gori. Wait, what about work? What work? What work? How long will it last? I'm definitely not going to work for a while." I see Adriana opened the window to the wine in the saucer Kathy used as an ashtray. She couldn't stand tobacco smoke. No one in the family smoked. One day her father had hosted Ethan for a pack of cigarettes so that he no longer thought of nicotine. He didn't smoke himself and he wouldn't let the boys smoke. "Kathy, why don't we not smoke? All the clothes at home stink. And we said clearly we don't smoke in the house." Yeah, so I listened to her. No smoking, no drinking, and no friends. "Okay, I'm going to get my stuff. Go to bed. I have to look for a job tomorrow." "Come on, please, let's go out tonight." Kathy's got her lips on. "I'm sorry." She looked at her friend. "All right, we'll get our stuff sorted later. I'm just going to shower first." "Okay, I'm going to Google where I can go." Adriana left the bathroom with the firm intention to walk around for a couple of hours. She also wanted to see the night capital with all its lights, passers-by, and inhabitants. And then go to bed. Tomorrow was not going to be an easy day. She realized that there were a lot of girls like her who had come to conquer the capital, and finding a job that could be combined with her studies would not be an easy task. But how did you all this spinning in front of the mirror, in a short skirt and deadstock, which looked more like a regular bra? Where did you get that nasty stuff? Where did you buy it? A second-hand store? Actually, that's what everyone here wears. Kathy, who's everybody here, doesn't even wear heels. Everyone's in a hurry, and it's kind of gross. Man, you're right. This place smells like the country. All right, I'll buy some clothes while I'm wearing jeans, but they won't take my top off. Okay, you go on with your dead end. Adriana hugged her friend. 5 more minutes and I'll be ready too. The evening went beautifully. They went to Arbat, though they almost got lost in the subway and first got on the wrong line. But we quickly figured out what to do. We visited souvenir stores, even ate a couple of hot dogs, as the seller assured us they were the best in Moscow. On Arbat they met some musicians. They invited them to some fashionable party on Taganka. Adriana declined, so Kathy went. Left alone, Adriana took the subway, hoping this time not to mix up anything and to get home without incident. She was thinking so hard that she just hit a car on the side of the road. A car on the side of the road, not immediately realizing what had happened. She looked around, trying to figure out how to get through. Then she realized she'd stepped off the sidewalk and into the roadway. "Hey, you're okay." The head of a man in dark glasses emerged from the car. "Hey, yeah, I'm sorry, please. Are you lost?" Noah looked at the girl with huge blue eyes with a smile. It felt like she was from another planet. "I wonder if that's a native color or if it's the lenses," Noah thought. No, I was just thinking." "Sorry again, but okay." The car door slammed shut. Adriana backed onto the sidewalk and shook her dress, which didn't stain one bit. The cars gleamed as if she had just stepped out of the cabin. Looking up, Adriana met her eyes with the young man driving the car she had hit. "He's handsome." A thought flashed through Adriana's mind. She averted her gaze and headed toward the subway. The traffic light winked yellow and cut the path with a red light. The girl stood up and waited for the green. A car drove right onto the zebra. Pedestrians began to resent the driver's insolence, but someone behind him sniggered that there were cameras and he was punishing himself. The window rolled down and a guy with glasses looked at Adriana. "Jump, come on, or the dough will bite." He smiled so sincerely that Adriana didn't hesitate, pulled the door handle, and got into the car. The car started so fast that Adriana lost her balance and crashed headlong into the headrests. "You'll excuse me, I'll be more careful with my seatbelt." The girl put the belt on, looking at the interior of the car. The place smelled of leather and expensive fragrance. Better than her father's perfume, Adriana thought. Where are we going? Where are we going? Taking you home. Where do you live? Adriana took a piece of paper with an address out of her bag and read it. How long have you been in Moscow? I arrived today to prepare for university. I see. And you? Are you from Moscow? Yes, and he smiled. My name is Noah, by the way. And you're Adriana. She held out her hand, then realizing she was doing something stupid, put it down on her lap. Adriana, were you in a hurry? No, Kathy, she's a friend of mine. We live together. She went to see the sunrise with the Arbat musicians. Aha! How romantic. Want me to show you a Moscow sunrise too? It's still very early. That's all right, we'll wait. In the meantime, I can show you Moscow at night. The girl was torn. On the one hand, she needed to go home and sleep. On the other hand, she wanted to spend time with this handsome guy. When else would she get the chance? To drive a cool car on the streets of the city at night, and in the daytime too, is unlikely to work out. I'm thinking again. Oh yeah, I'd love to accept your invitation. Great. Let's get going. And Noah stepped on the gas. They drove around till morning. First they chatted, then Noah turned off the music and they yelled songs in the car without hearing each other. It was so loud. Then they stopped at some canal and took a long walk along the waterfront. Noah threw his jacket over Adriana and she walked, wrapped in the smell of expensive perfume and a handsome man walking beside her. He was 8 years older than her. That's practically a lifetime as an intelligent, well-read conversationalist. She listened to him with bated breath. He was also very charming and witty. When they began to say goodbye, Adriana realized that she had fallen head over heels in love with him and dreamed that he would kiss her. It would be her first kiss. Well, no, of course it wouldn't. She had already kissed Talik's classmate, but those leaden kisses were nothing compared to the kiss that Noah could give her. She felt in her feminine gut that one kiss from him would make her melt like a candle. But he confined himself to a light kiss on the cheek, wished her a good night's sleep, and left. Adriana stood at the doorway and watched him for a long time. When she got to her floor, she turned the key quietly so as not to wake Kathy if she was home. Without turning Kathy on, she went into the kitchen and climbed onto the windowsill. She didn't feel like sleeping at all, and there was no point in going to bed. She'd have to get up in 15 minutes anyway, if only to lie in bed and dream. Adriana threw off her clothes and went into the room. The curtains were closed tightly. She didn't want to turn on the light. Kathy was sleeping peacefully on her side of the bed, an indistinct outline, breathing. It was clearly spoken of. She walked around the couch and lay back in her seat. Immediately she jumped up with a cry of horror. Someone was sleeping in her place, and that someone also jumped up in surprise and swore in a man's voice. What is it now? In a sleepy voice muttered I, Kathy, and turned on the supervisor. She saw a frightened Adriana in one underwear, who tried to cover herself with her hands, but nothing worked. And the guys from the company she met today, he went to see her off, and stayed that way. Shit, I'm sorry you weren't home. I thought you weren't coming. The guy snorted at her words and gave it back. Dumbfounded, Adriana blanketed himself. She grabbed it like a lifeline, tangled up to her neck, and stared at Kathy, not knowing what to say. The uninvited guest got out of bed, not the least bit embarrassed by her nakedness, walked over to Kathy, kissed her on the cheek, and silently walked away to the bathroom. Kathy could only utter Adriana to Verona. I'm sorry, it just happened. I'll put the kettle on now. She jumped out of bed, throwing on another man's shirt as she went and disappeared into the kitchen. Adriana wandered after her friend, grabbed her clothes, waited for the guy to come out of the bathroom, and her collapsed behind the saving door. Took a shower, calmed down, and came out already ready for a new day. Kathy sat on the windowsill and smoked. Where is he? He's gone. Don't worry about it. I can't remember his name. Kathy. But they don't do that. And you and I had a deal from the beginning. No boyfriends. What am I supposed to do in the meantime? Kathy put her cigarette between her teeth and raised her hands. I give up. I give up. I say it won't happen again. Okay, Kathy slid off the windowsill and put out her cigarette. Sorry, Adriana, who did you spend the night with? Kathy knew that Adriana had no experience in this area. There was one suitor, Talik's classmate, but he did not achieve anything. Adriana, having watched her mother and father, decided not to burden herself with neither family nor children. Until she was 30. Sleeping around just for sex. She thought it was wrong. Oh, Kathy, I met such a guy. Adriana said dreamily. In fact, I think I'm in love with him. Just like that. Yeah, just like in the movies. I looked into his eyes and I was drowning. And he smiles so beautifully. And he's just like I thought he'd be. I didn't know what you thought about men. I thought you only had notebooks on your mind. That's what I thought. Come on, who is he? What is he? Where is he from? Adriana spent the next hour and a half telling me everything she'd learned that night. She felt like she'd known him all her life. You're a beauty. Not only did you pick up a Muscovite, but you're driving an expensive car. And from the looks of it quietly, not quietly, nor enviously muttered Kathy. Okay, I'm going to bed. What are your plans? I'm going to run to the subway, buy a newspaper with ads. Well, mother, what century do you live in? Everything's on the internet now. That's right. Then I'll get some coffee. I'm sleepy and start looking. Maybe I'll go today. Come on. Good luck. Kathy nodded sweetly and went to the couch in someone else's shirt. I wonder what that one of hers went off in. Naked. Adriana hummed and went to get coffee. She'd been sitting at the classifieds all day, calling all the suitable ones, but hearing rejection everywhere. No experience, too young, not a Muscovite, and so on. Look, go to McDonald's or a courier. Looking at Adriana's futile attempts, Kathy said, this one is always required at McDonald's. I can't, there's a courier schedule. Oh, I'm so metal right off the bat. Why were you looking for it then? Kathy laughed. Production manager? I don't know. Adriana put the clipboard aside. Maybe you're right. Courier would be great. And I know Moscow. I'm hungry, passionate. How did you not buy anything? Only coffee she didn't think of. Fuck it. Let's go. My mother was making some salads and pies. I forgot to take it out last night. I hope they didn't go bad. They were in the kitchen drinking tea and cakes when Adriana's phone rang. Yes, hi, Adriana lit up when she recognized Noah's voice. Hi. Do you want to go for a walk? We have very beautiful parks and squares. I'd love to. I'll pick you up in an hour. Okay, I'll be waiting. Adriana put the phone away. Her cheeks were burning, her eyes were shining. Yeah, buddy, be careful who you fall for the first guy you meet. Maybe he's a maniac. I can feel it in my heart. The one. He's the one. Okay, I gotta get ready. And there she is, twirling in front of the mirror. Tight jeans and a white t-shirt with a colorful print. Kathy, she's never worn those before. She'd chosen darker colors that were less likely to show chocolate fingerprints and lines. The white only emphasized her skin tone, and the pattern highlighted the depth of her eyes. She'd been spinning at the mirror for a few minutes now and couldn't get enough of admiring it. Man, with my first paycheck, I'm going to buy myself a shirt like this. You like it? I'll give it to you. It looks better on you. Oh, thanks, Kathy. I'm going to go wait for you. And let's have no guests, no guests, no guests. As if there were anyone to invite. Kathy sighed and closed the door behind the fleeing Adriana. Yes, friend, their lips are stupid. They've built themselves no road. Well, let's see what kind of fruit you got. Kathy looked at the departing cars, and Adriana sat on the front seat with a huge bouquet of roses and smiled. You know, this is the first bouquet I ever got. Noah looked at this young beauty, who apparently had no idea what kind of impression she made on men. He had realized even yesterday that he had found a girl who was not sophisticated at all. It's been a long time since he'd met such a girl. And not that you can't meet them anywhere in the capital. She was the first who did not ask what he does, where he lives and works. All the girls before, seeing an expensive car and a fashionable outfit, immediately turned into money hunters. And Adriana? She was different. I wanted to protect her from everyone and from this city, which would soon turn this naive, beautiful girl into a selfish woman looking for a richer man. How many such naive beauties Moscow has swallowed up? Noah took her to a fancy restaurant. On the roof, the aroma of expensive wine and perfume wafted across the veranda. Live music was playing. Adriana tried hard not to turn her head, trying to see all the details of the interior and the guests themselves. Noah furtively watched the girl's reaction to this or that device and smiled. No, he didn't want to spoil her. He wanted to hide her from everyone and enjoy her purity and sincerity. Alone. You know, it's my wife's first time at a restaurant. Adriana Komkov holding a napkin, visibly nervous. Today you have a day of discovery, laughed Noah. It's okay, don't be nervous. And it's all thanks to you. Adriana said, embarrassed. They danced, ate seafood, the name of which Adriana had heard for the first time. She refused to drink wine. She was already dizzy with love. People came up to them, greeted Noah, shook hands. Adriana realized that Noah was known here. Maybe he was some kind of official or media personality that she just didn't know about. She really wanted to ask him about it, but she was shy. Are you looking at me like that? Do you want to ask me something? No. Everybody says hello to you. You're some famous person everyone knows. Noah laughed at the naive question. What did he think was tormenting her all evening? No, it's just that I come here a lot. But I do know a couple people here from work. What do you do? I run a construction holding company. He looked at Adriana carefully, expecting to see a reassessment of his person, a logical construction of new behavior with him, and a hidden joy that she was sitting with a very not poor man. All of which he had seen many times since his answer to that question, but Adriana looked at him in surprise and said, You must be very smart since you have your own holding at that age. Noah even exhaled a breath. Is it hers? There was no answer. He wasn't wrong about the girl, really naive and not spoiled by the whole Benjamin thing. Do you want me to show you my house? Vera dropped her eyes full of fright. Maybe it's not today you're afraid of me. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to go visiting. Can I ask you an indiscreet question? Yeah, sure. Have you ever been in a relationship with a man? I'm not a little girl, I'm 20 years old. It's not about age. Have you? No. And I'm blushing like a beet. Thank you for your honesty and I'm sorry. We'll definitely see the house when you want to. Okay, Adriana yawned. Come on, I'll take you home. You never got any rest after last night. And I'm a fool. Boring. Instead of taking you home. I'm sorry, I really didn't go to bed. I was looking for a job. I thought you came to enroll. I am, but my parents can't help me. So I need a job that I can do with my studies. I see. Let's go. If you let me, I can help you with your job search too. I'd really appreciate it. He drove her home. Adriana wanted to get out of the car, but he stopped her, taking her hands in his. I don't want to scare you, but I really want to kiss you. Could you not talk about it? Adriana was embarrassed. He leaned down very slowly and touched his lips to hers. Adriana was afraid to even breathe. She felt that if she took a breath now, he would change his mind. He savored the sweetness of her lips very gently, afraid to frighten her with his passion. And Adriana was the first to make a move, opening her lips and inviting him to continue. Her pulse cleared. It became very hot, and it felt so good in her lower abdomen. She remembered the butterflies in her stomach she'd read about, and thought that now those butterflies would plow you with their wings and fill the whole car. Noah suddenly pulled away abruptly. Adriana felt as if something very dear and precious had been taken away. She looked at Noah and did not understand anything. He got out of the car and opened the passenger door. It's very late. Run home. Adriana looked at the man and did not want to leave. She stood in front of him with her eyes open, her lips open from the kiss. And she wouldn't leave. Shit, I'm lazy, just go. And he pushed her toward the driveway door. He stepped around the car and whistled the car into drive. At that time, the curtains rustled in the apartment window. Kathy was waiting for her friend. She was out of place, pacing from corner to corner. Smoked a pack of cigarettes and kept thinking. It was her second year of enrollment. She had already realized that year that she couldn't stay in Moscow if she didn't find someone rich. Daddy. And that year she found one. But not for long. For only 2 weeks this freak was ready to support her, dress her and take her to fancy restaurants. She did what he wanted in bed, obediently. The old man was a pervert. But he taught her such tricks that now no man was indifferent to her claims. And then she made a mistake and hinted that it would be a good idea for her to move in with him. She was immediately rudely pointed at the door, thrown out as an unnecessary thing, along with the clothes in which she came. Didn't even have money to get back home. I had to call my mother and lie that she'd been robbed on the way home. She came home and decided that next time she would not miss her chance. It's all about calculating and not making mistakes. And here's Adriana had given herself a big score on the first day. The car pulled up to the driveway, and no one got out of it for a long time. Kathy realized that something intimate was probably going on in the car. Well, girlfriend, there will be a holiday on my street. Noah didn't call for a few days. It was a break for Adriana to get her thoughts together and prepare for the entrance exams. She and Kathy traveled to the institute and applied. Kathy sat to cram for the exams, writing cheat sheets. The job hunt was on the back burner. They had to get in first. That was more important. Kathy wasn't going home this time. But Adriana had promised her family that if she didn't get in, she'd come back. So getting in was more important than anything else. Of course, she was worried that Noah was missing, but she didn't show it. Kathy didn't deal with Kathy's issues, although she saw that her friend was worried, often distracted from her studies, which had never happened before. What had happened in the car if her boyfriend was missing? Well, Adriana was still a virgin. Kathy didn't doubt that. She would have told. So the man decided not to bother with her demure friend and choose a woman more sophisticated than Adriana. Or maybe he'd started to unravel. And Adriana poked him in the nose. Kathy laughed at that thought. On the day of the exams, Adriana still waited for the cherished call. She was just sitting at her notebook. When the phone vibrated, Kathy furtively glanced at her friend's phone. So just Noah is already good, Kathy thought. Adriana picked up the phone. Yes, her voice trembled, but she tried to pull herself together. Hi. You have your first exam today, right? Yes, today. Then I wish you good luck. Thank you. There was silence on the phone. Adriana was embarrassed to ask why he hadn't called, where he'd disappeared to, and when would they meet again. Noah didn't say anything, but he didn't hang up either. On the other side of the wire, the man tried to restrain himself from asking her out. After that kiss, he realized he was having a really hard time keeping his cool with this woman. Took a break, but today he couldn't help but call and wish her luck. I'll see you later. So that was it. It's full effect. Some girl's stringing him along, and he really wants her to keep it up. Adriana's blossoming. She looked at her friend like she'd been given 1 million. I'll pick you up at the institute when I get off at 3. Oh, if Adriana could, she would run right now to meet her lover. But no, there's still this exam. The girls went outside and breathed in the fresh summer air. What do you think, from afar? Adriana looked at her phone. Well, you're sure, aren't you? I hope so too. And thanks for helping me with the last few answers. You could have done it yourself. Kathy, you just gotta know how to pull yourself together. Guys, what's the plan? A young guy appeared in front of them. They'd already seen him when they applied. Oh, where are you going? Kathy replied rudely. Kathy, listen, said Noah to her friend. He's got to come over. Why don't you introduce us? Yeah, sure. They stood on the porch of the institute and waited. Noah arrived about 5 minutes later, got out of the car. A little embarrassed that Adriana wasn't alone. Handed her a bouquet of roses. Noah, he turned to Kathy. Kathy. She held out her hand and smiled. I'm sorry, if I'd known I would have made another bouquet. All three of them felt uncomfortable. Noah, we can take Kathy with us. She's bored at home alone. Adriana realized she had to say something. She was embarrassed in front of her friend. Noah was going to drive Adriana out of town. There was a stove and a picnic basket in the car. After he did ask Adriana out on a date, he realized that he was insanely excited to see her. He also realized that he really wanted to be alone with her and tell her how he felt. He generally felt like a snotty teenager next to her, not knowing how to handle his toxicosis. But it was impossible to refuse Adriana either. He smiled and made an inviting gesture. Of course, I'd be happy to spend time with such beautiful companions. Kathy felt superfluous, but she didn't think it was appropriate to refuse the invitation. As soon as she saw Adriana's suitor, she realized that he absolutely had to be her. She more deserved such a man than some Adriana. He was completely different from the men she had known before. She'd always been met with either elderly trappers hungry for a young body or snotty golden boys completely dependent on their fathers. This one was a young, mature man who knew his worth, handsome, virile, and intelligent. Dark hair fell over his forehead. Intelligent gray eyes, handsome nose, strong-willed chin. Nature had rewarded him with tall stature and broad shoulders. He was like an Apollo from an encyclopedia of cultural studies. She agreed to play second fiddle and jumped into the back seat. That's just for now, Kathy thought, seeing the basket on the seat. Kathy smiled predatorily. Well, she had already ruined their plans, and that was already a good thing. Noah drove the girls out of town. They were silent. He took Adriana's hand and gently stroked her palm with his fingers. Adriana drove and enjoyed the touch immensely. Kathy looked at all this callow tenderness, and she felt sick to her stomach at the sight of it. No one had ever treated her like this. They usually treated her like a consumer. They took what they wanted and left. The picnic was held in a friendly, cheerful atmosphere. The girls laughed at his jokes, joked, and enjoyed the nature and warm sunshine. They settled down on the bank of the river. The water was warm, and Kathy suggested a swim. She knew very well how men reacted to her body, and she wanted to show herself in all her glory. Although Adriana was a beautiful girl, Kathy had a more feminine figure, and the owner of that figure knew it. Adriana refused to bathe, citing the lack of a swimsuit. Noah, on the other hand, did not mind the coolness of the water. Kathy quickly threw off her dress, leaving her in her underwear. Sneaking a glance at Noah's interested gaze, she smiled to herself. What animals men are. They all want only one thing. Adriana watched Kathy splashing in the water, Kathy laughing and splashing, Noah trying to get back up and catching her mood. He was as handsome as God. Muscles played as he made a sweep of his arms. Drops of water oozed from his hair. They glistened on his hair like the sun reflected in a mirror. Adriana felt jealous of her friend and even regretted refusing to bathe. Finally, everyone came out and lay down on the plaid. Noah leaned on his elbow and looked at Adriana. "You are very beautiful," in a whisper he said. Adriana smiled at his words and calmed down. The sparks of jealousy were extinguished, and she continued to enjoy this beautiful day. Kathy, having felt the interested male gaze on her at the beginning of the swim, realized that if she wanted to, and she would take this man away from her friend. Noah did not know how to be alone with Adriana without offending her friend. He realized that Kathy was interested in him as a man. She had tried to get his attention, and even for a while she had succeeded. He was just used to socializing with this type of predatory woman who knew what she wanted. She'd be the perfect lover. But he was too tempted to socialize with just such. Adriana, on the other hand, he was sure she would still wake up as a woman and surprise him. She was interesting to him. He wanted to get to know her. Flowers he read like an open book. Girls. Not tired? No, Kathy answered, and a twinkle of her lips. She had just taken a bite of a peach, and its juice glistened on her lips. Noah turned away and looked Adriana in the eye. Yes, let's go home. They packed up the basket, got in the car, and drove back to town. After saying a warm goodbye to Kathy, Noah asked Adriana to stick around. I really wanted to spend this time with you. I'm sorry, I felt bad leaving her at the institute. I understand you like to ride the swings? On what? Let's go on the swings, shall we? He took her hand and led her to the playground. My sister really likes to swing on such swings, can sit on them for hours. What about you? I've been a big sister all my life. I don't think I've ever ridden on a swing, only ridden others. Adriana smiled sadly, then sat down. He swung the swing every time she returned to the starting point. He would catch her hand. It was so touching and intimate. He stopped the swing, helped her off, and hugged her. She snuggled into his shoulder and let herself be held. He lifted her face by her chin with his fingers and kissed her. Kathy watched the playground scene from the kitchen window and clenched her fists. Okay, I'll play some more. No, girlfriend, I'm not giving it to you that easily. A month flew by like a day. The exams were over, the girls got in. Adriana with a perfect score. Kathy saved one, but he saved one. If at first Adriana wanted to go home for the rest of the vacation, now she didn't want to part with Noah for a single day, telling her mother that she had found a job for that time. She stayed and indeed found a part-time job as a courier for a small law firm. She worked during the day and spent all her evenings with Noah. Kathy was deflated and resentful that her friend had forgotten all about her. But she didn't miss her. Either she was hanging out with some golden boy and spending her nights in clubs. The relationship between Adriana and Noah developed rapidly. At the end of August, they went to Adriana's house together to meet her parents. Dad was on watch, but the rest of the family was very happy to meet. Ethan, who had grown very mature at his college, had come for the vacation. Mom was crying with happiness. She liked her daughter's boyfriend very much. She saw how reverent, affectionate he was towards Adriana. She was glad that her daughter had found a good man and was sure that he would not hurt her. After receiving his blessing, they left a week later. God, I can't imagine how your mom copes with everyone. Do you want kids? Do you? I asked first. Adriana laughed. Someday. Not right now. I do, but not that many. And we'll definitely revisit this conversation. But after the wedding. It's a proposal. Adriana gave her lover a sly look. Yeah, Noah said seriously and pulled the car over to the curb. I've been looking for the right moment, but it's not working out. Close your eyes. Adriana felt the seriousness of the moment and closed her eyes. Noah took her hand, kissed her open palm, and put a ring on her finger. I will be very happy if you become my wife. Adriana opened her eyes and looked into Noah's eyes. There was a lump in her throat. She only nodded and wiped away a tear that was traitorously running down her cheek. That means yes. Adriana nodded, wrapped her arms around Noah, and whispered into her ear. That's a yes. At the end of freshman year, they signed their names. Kathy was a witness at their modest wedding. The bride herself had refused a lavish celebration with a lot of guests. She considered it a secret rite and did not want to share her happiness with strangers. Noah agreed with his future wife. Only the groom's parents and the bride's 2 older brothers were at the wedding. My mother could not come, taking the children to Moscow. I didn't want to leave them with no one. Right after the wedding, they went on a wedding trip, and then it turned out that Adriana was pregnant. She was so happy. Just before the wedding, she moved into her husband's house, slowly settling in, building the nursery and choosing the color of wallpaper. She had to write an application for distance learning. Noah in everything supported and protected his wife from all hardships, carried in his arms, waiting for the firstborn. Yes, he was not ready to become a father so early. But as soon as Adriana shocked him with the news, he was over the moon. Adriana was coming out of the mall with 2 large bags of clothes for their future daughter. There were cute sprawlers, yarns, and beautiful white bonnets with hand-me-downs. Also a carousel over the crib and a few rattles. She knew it was bad luck to buy anything in advance, but she couldn't deny herself. She stood at the traffic light and waited for the green light. Cars were rushing by, all in a hurry to get to the traffic light. Already in the hospital, Adriana tried to reconstruct the picture of the accident. How she had ended up on the roadway, she could not explain to either the investigators or Noah. It seemed to her that someone had pushed her. There were a lot of people on the sidewalk. Maybe someone lost their balance and fell on top of her. The brakes whistled behind her. There were people crowded over Adriana's prostrate body. Someone was screaming. Some woman was crying. Someone was trying to call an ambulance. There were torn bags, cradles, and bonnets lying in the dust on the road. Someone stepped on rattles, and the balls rolled on the asphalt. Adriana woke up in the hospital. Her body ached. There didn't seem to be a single living spot left. Adriana instinctively reached for her stomach. Easy, easy, my love. You can't move now. Her lips were dry. She felt as if she had screamed, when in fact she hadn't uttered a sound. I'll get a doctor. Noah rushed into the hallway to tell the doctor that his wife was awake. The ward was filled with strangers. Someone was taking her pulse, shining a flashlight in her eyes. Then she felt an injection and fell into blissful darkness. When Noah entered the room the next day, Adriana was lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling. She was not crying. The tears had dried up the night before, when she found out how she had ended up here. I lost our little girl. Honey, it's okay, I understand. But right now you need the strength to heal. You've lost a lot of blood. I lost our girl, Adriana repeated. Noah squeezed her cold hand, stroked her cheek. Sweetheart, please. There will be others. There won't. There won't. Adriana screamed and turned away from her husband. Noah knew it. He was grateful that the doctors were able to save his wife. He would not have survived if he had lost her. They lost the baby. They had to cut out the uterus. Adriana would never be able to have children again. They had yet to realize that and to live through it together. He would try to make her feel better. But how would she? Kathy appeared on the doorstep. In that time, she had become a beautiful young woman. Fiery red hair, gathered in a beautiful hairstyle, green eyes under long lashes, smooth movements, clothes of the best brands and makeup all emphasized her sexuality. Noah did not even look in her direction. I should probably go, please help her, he whispered to Kathy and left the room. As Adriana remained silent, tucked into her pillow. The doctor said you lost the baby. A friend said quietly, hang in there, darling. It's going to be all right. There won't be any more light. I won't be able to have any more children. Is that happiness? Noah loves you very much. He doesn't care if you have children or not. That's for now. That's always. Excuse me, I'm sleepy. Yeah, sure. The whole thing went out of the room and hugged Noah sitting on the bench outside the room. It's going to be okay. Noah, if you need support, know that I'm always here for you. Thank you, Kathy. 7 years passed. Adriana graduated with honors, got a job as a lawyer in a big firm. Noah offered to work with him hand in hand. But Adriana wanted to be independent, so her husband accepted. But Kathy did not refuse the vacancy and now worked for Noah as one of the specialists in the legal department. Everything seemed to have calmed down. Adriana accepted the fact that they would not have children. She plunged into building a career. Noah didn't mind his wife working. He realized that if he left her at home, and he wanted to, his beloved would go mad with thoughts of losing a child. Don't you want children at all? Kathy pushed her hair back from her face and looked at her lover. Noah, sprawled on the bed, was resting from the sexual marathon he had just been given by this red-headed bestie. You know very well that Adriana can't have children. What does that have to do with your visual spouse? She's got me. Noah stood up and reached for his pants. Why, Noah? We've been together so many years, and you're clutching at her like a straw. Am I any worse? If you don't stop this right now, I'm going to get up and leave. All right. All right. Kathy rolled over onto her other side and sighed. Are you staying in tonight? No. Adriana's business trip changed. I have to go home. Their relationship began a 1.5 years ago. It was the company's anniversary. Noah really wanted to go to the party with his wife. She was a constant companion at all business, family gatherings and company functions. But Adriana came down with a sore throat. And as much as Noah didn't want to, he had to go alone for the first time in years. He had a few drinks, but by the end of the evening he was pretty drunk. Kathy's wife's friend and one of his company lawyers offered to drive him. He wasn't driving himself, so he accepted the offer gladly. And then it was all a blur. Kathy was a good, hot, wild ginger cat. She let him do whatever he wanted with her. It was different with his wife. There wasn't that wild passion and onslaught. In the morning he blamed himself, thinking he was a traitor and a traitor. He showered his wife with expensive gifts to atone for his guilt. He couldn't look her in the eye for weeks. He sent Kathy himself to Peter to the subsidiaries the very next morning. But he couldn't keep her there forever either. There was a serious conversation to be had. Kathy. Everything that happened was a mistake. I love Adriana. She's your friend? Oh, please. Let's not make a circus out of this. You wanted me as much as I still do. She walked around the table where he was sitting, knelt down in front of him, and that's how their relationship began. At work, he burned with passion for this wildcat at home, melting with tenderness and love for his wife. Kathy was the perfect lover, never asked for extra, never hinted at anything. Was able not only to look her friend in the eye, but also to lie shamelessly. About her new love affair. He rented her an apartment where they met, stayed overnight several times. When his wife was on business trips, he immediately on the shore dotted all the dots over and said that except for the role of mistress, cannot give her anything. Kathy agreed and for almost 2 years followed the unspoken rule. And then recently she had a breakthrough. She started hinting at a divorce, a new phase of the relationship. She started talking about kids and that it was time for him to be a father. He sometimes wondered if he was ready for children now. But he loved Adriana very much and realized that even a hint of it would offend her very much. He didn't know how to hint that a child could be adopted, that there were so many abandoned little children now, and they could make one of them happy. "What are you doing up so late, honey? Trouble at work?" "Yeah, I got held up a little bit." "Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay, I'll just warm up and make dinner." "That's great. I'm hungry as a wolf." Adriana smiled affectionately at her husband, kissed his neck and went into the kitchen. "Oh my God, what am I doing? I have to end things with Kathy. She's not going to settle down. If things don't stop, he could lose his wife. Kathy used to lie in bed and smoke, but not anymore. She's been on the sidelines for 2 years already. To now just stay in the same place like this and have waited so far too long for her time. It had been 3 months since she'd been off birth control, and each time she hoped that another intimacy would bring her a cherished pregnancy. But so far, it hadn't worked. She'd have to slow down, or her mistress might get away with it. She realized this from today's conversation. Keep quiet, lay low, and then give him a gift. Noah drove to work with the firm intention of ending his relationship with Kathy. But when she walked into his office and undid the buttons and blouse and bent over his desk invitingly, he couldn't help himself. 2 months passed. Kathy never brought up the conversation of divorce or children again. And Noah calmed down. He was quite content with this life at home, a faithful, quiet wife outside the home, a wild passion for another woman. Not love, but passion. And until she started demanding another relationship again, he didn't want to change anything. "You're going to have to deal with it, honey." I said, "Pack up and let's go get an abortion," Noah said slowly, deliberately. "No, I'd already kept quiet long enough not to hurt her feelings. We're having a baby, and I want you to know it." "I don't want this baby. You should have thought of that before." He grabbed her by the scruff of the neck and whispered, "You were on birth control. It happens. It's not a 100% guarantee. Anyway, I'm keeping the baby. And if you're a good boy, maybe I won't tell your wonderful Adriana." Noah opened the door and froze on the threshold. He immediately realized that his wife was not home alone. The scent of perfume and high-heeled shoes told him that his wife was home with a friend, and that friend was his mistress. God, what she'd already told his wife. Noah kicked off his shoes and walked into the kitchen, expecting the worst. "Noah, Kathy is pregnant, and we've been called to be godparents to the baby." Adriana hugged her husband, a sign of welcome. "Champagne? We can't go to Kathy anymore. I don't feel like going alone." Noah looked at his smiling wife and could not say a word. Kathy was smiling at him behind his wife's back, looking at him from under her lowered eyelashes. "You know, maybe you and I should think about adoption." His wife hugged him gently. They had spent a long time, Kathy and now, lying in bed. Adriana voiced his thoughts. If it had been a little earlier, he would have gladly supported her. Now he just didn't know what to say. That Kathy would give birth, he had no doubt. She needed something to manipulate him, that she'd go for blackmail. He didn't doubt it either. How to talk about adoption in this situation he didn't know. It was easier, as always, to make promises. "Soon you'll have someone to babysit, my love." "Oh, she's so happy. I've been trying to find out how her secret admirer feels about her pregnancy, and she won't say a word. Well, they should get married so the baby can live with a full family. There's a lot of women raising kids alone these days. A bunch is not an entourage." Noah kissed his wife on the forehead. "Let's go to bed. I have a long day tomorrow." "Good night, my love. Good night, my love." Just as he'd hoped, Kathy had him on a short leash. She could call him late at night, citing toxemia or a craving for lemon and jam. He lived in a constant state of deceit, lying to his wife about urgently needing to help a friend, going to meetings, staying late at work, and signing urgent contracts. He was caught between 2 fires. An unsuspecting wife and a pregnant mistress who hinted time and again that if he started ignoring her requests, Adriana would find out about everything. A month later, Kathy announced that they were having twins. Noah decided to tell his wife everything. He knew she would never forgive him, but he couldn't go on living in deceit either. "I'm tired, lighten up. I'll make sure the kids have everything they need. I'll open a trust fund in their name. They'll have enough for the rest of their lives, and you won't need anything, but don't count on more than that. But I'm going to talk to Adriana today, and I'm going to tell her everything. I know she won't forgive me or you, but I can't lie to her anymore. She'll file for divorce as soon as you mention a mistress." "Isn't that what you wanted?" Noah snapped at me. "I just want my children to have a father. I gotta go. I hope you don't want herring and jam tonight." Adriana will probably start crying now, or, on the contrary, she will shut up and keep quiet. He was sure there would be no accusations of hysterics. She was not that kind of person. The house met him with dark windows. Had he not waited and gone to bed? He walked to the kitchen and saw the note left hastily on the table. Couldn't get through. "Mom's sick. She went home right away. Call me when you get home." He always turned off the phone when he went to Kathy's house. He just couldn't lie to his wife at his mistress's house. Adriana thought he was in important meetings at times like this and turned off the connection so he wouldn't be distracted by unnecessary calls. He dialed his wife's number. "Sorry, love, I just got back." "That's okay," Adriana said in a tired voice. "Mom's asleep. She's had an injection. Betty and I are at the hospital now. We'll wait for the doctor, and then we'll go home." "What's wrong with your heart? Do you need my help?" "No, don't worry. I've already told my dad. I'll be here for a week, maybe a little longer, and then I'll be back." "That's right. I can come back tomorrow morning. Can business wait?" No, it's fine. Good night, and hi to all of you." "Okay." Noah hung up. He was so excited to talk to Adriana. He knew how hard it was going to be, but she wasn't in the mood to talk right now. Having gotten another reprieve, Noah exhaled and went to bed. Noah had an important meeting to attend when the call from his wife rang. Mom had died. Adriana cried into the phone. "I don't even know what to do now. I'm on my way out, hang on, I'll be there soon." Interrupting the meeting and apologizing to his partners, Noah left the conference room. The phone rang again. Kathy was calling. She began to whine into the receiver without preamble. "I feel bad. They keep changing all the time. I feel like my stomach is about to burst. I don't have time. Saint. Adriana's mom died. I'm going to the village." The whining stopped in the tube. Then he heard it. "I have to support my friend." "Take me with you." "What friend? Your whole friendship is a sham. You don't want to take me?" "Yes, I do. I don't need your whining right now." After getting rid of Kathy, Noah got in the car and drove as fast as he could to the village. Then there was the funeral, a difficult conversation with his father. He begged to take his youngest daughter to Moscow. The boys were already grown up. Michael was already 13, almost 14, and under the supervision of his older brothers he could stay in the village. Betty, on the other hand, had just turned 10, and leaving her in male company after her brothers was not an option. Her father had a year and a half to go before he retired. It was for this period that he asked his eldest daughter to take her sister in. Adriana looked hopefully at Noah, and Noah had no choice but to agree. So there were 3 in their family, and the confession conversation was indefinitely postponed. Betty was crying constantly. Adriana was nervous, looking for a psychologist for her sister. Noah was going through both family turmoil and the fact that the due date was inexorably approaching. "I have to go away for a week on a business trip. Can you manage without me?" Adriana was putting dinner on a plate. "Of course we can manage, right, Ethan?" And Noah winked at the girl. Betty crumbled and ducked into her plate. Since her mother's death, she'd hardly spoken to anyone. Transferring to a new school had been a lot of stress too. The only thing Betty was happy about was her sister. She hardly remembered her. She'd left for Moscow when she was not even 2, but she loved her, getting her great presents for all the holidays. Noah had just dropped Betty off at school and turned around, getting ready to go to work, when he got a text message. "I'm working, waiting for Daddy and presents." Lately he had been annoyed with everything to do with Kathy. He wasn't excited about her pregnancy. All 8 months of waiting, he didn't know where to get away from the endless lies. And he wasn't happy about the kids either. How happy he would be now if they were his and Adriana's children. "I'll be there for the discharge." It was all he could do for her. That, and a secure future for his children. He was going to cut all ties with Kathy after the birth. She's still young, she'll be able to get her own life together. Kathy smiled at the text message. "Well, darling, if you don't want to do it the right way, it will be the wrong way." Adriana, tired but very satisfied with the work she had done, walked into the hotel room. All the legalities were solved, all that was left was to sign the contract. But that was not her job anymore. She could go home early and surprise the housemates by arriving early, cooking a delicious dinner. Noah picks up Betty, they get home, and there she is. "Adriana, hi." That was Kathy calling. They haven't been able to get together in 2 months. Adriana's in trouble. Kathy's got toxicity or a stomachache. Adriana had tried several times to visit her friend, to be supportive, to offer help, but Kathy always found excuses to postpone the meeting. Adriana attributed it to problems in her personal life. Kathy's mysterious admirer, the twins' father, never stopped being mysterious. To all of Adriana's questions about the children's father, Kathy smiled mysteriously. Adriana eventually decided that the man was married, but would not abdicate responsibility. Kathy lived in a swanky apartment that he rented to her. 2 months ago, Kathy had hinted that as soon as she gave birth, she would be preparing for the wedding. And they'd even flipped through a few wedding catalogs together. Adriana calmed down. "If Kathy says it's okay, it's okay. Hey, mommy-to-be. How's the future Xenia doing? Can you say congratulations?" "Oh my God, honey, I'm so happy. Everything's good. How are you? How are the kids?" "Everything's great. Listen, could you pick me up? I don't feel like taking a cab with the kids." "I'm counting on you." Adriana didn't ask why the father couldn't meet her at the hospital. She wasn't in the habit of meddling in other people's affairs. If Kathy wanted to, she'd tell him herself. Of course I will." "What time do you get discharged?" 12. "That's when I'll start getting ready to go home. I probably won't get home in time for you." "Thanks, my friend. I'll be waiting." They said goodbye warmly. Adriana packed her suitcase and left. It was a long way. She would have to drive all night to be on time. Then her husband would cook dinner for Noah and Betty. Noah came to pick up Kathy with a big bouquet of flowers. She may not have deserved his attention, but flowers were required by tradition. He didn't want to be looked at askew. Seeing Kathy holding 2 small bundles in his heart made something shudder. He may not have wanted these children, but they were already lying in their mother's arms and sleeping sweetly, and he would have no others. Next to Kathy stood a nurse with a bag. Noah bought cribs and strollers in advance, brought everything necessary for the children to Kathy's apartment. He bought up everything the salesman advised. He didn't know what they could use. He walked up to the nurse, handed her the bouquet, and took the bag. "Take the kids, Daddy, don't be shy," the nurse mumbled. He turned to Kathy and held out his arms, and there in his arms were his 2 little wrinkled parts, red, wrinkled, and sleeping. He felt such tenderness for these little creatures, and the tenderness for them was replaced by the bitterness of realizing that he would never have children with the woman he loved. The nurse handed the bag to Kathy and disappeared into the bowels of the hospital. Kathy was in no hurry. She stomped around looking for someone. "Are we waiting for someone else?" Noah asked impatiently. "Yes, the discharge papers are coming and we'll go." "Can't we wait in the car? We've been in the hospital for 3 days already, breathing hospital air. Let the kids get some fresh air." Adriana parked in the parking lot and looked up at the porch of the maternity hospital. What was her surprise when she saw Kathy and Noah with the babies in their arms? Apparently things aren't going as well for Kathy as she said they would, and the children's father clearly doesn't want to publicize their relationship. Kathy is probably just embarrassed in front of the nursing staff to be greeted by a friend rather than the children's father. What a sympathetic and understanding husband she has. She took a bouquet from the back seat of the car and went to congratulate the young mom on the addition. Kathy immediately spotted Adriana's car. Great. Just a little bit more and her personal life would be set. That's something Adriana will never forgive. "Hi." Noah turned around and turned deathly pale. The last thing he expected was to see his wife here. Then he looked at Kathy's grasping happiness and realized everything. Everything had been set up. As they say, the oil painting that the slaves were walking had found out everything anyway. If it wasn't for him, Kathy would have told anyway. He felt like the last scoundrel, stood there with the children in his arms and kept silent. Congratulations. Grow up healthy. And already turning to her husband. What a good boy you are. Adriana came up to her husband and looked into the blanket. Oh, how cute. What are you doing here? Noah just didn't know what to say. And to be honest, he didn't understand his wife's reaction and behavior. As soon as he saw Adriana approaching the steps with the bouquet, he realized that today was the last time he would see her. I wanted to congratulate the young mom and help with the babies. Adriana winked at her friend. Apparently, I'm not the only one who decided to meet her from the hospital. Adriana waved away a tear. You look so touching sitting with them in your arms, and this one of yours couldn't make it. Yeah, and Adriana turned to Kathy. The latter realized that Adriana thought that Noah, just like her, was just picking her up from the hospital and had nothing to do with the kids. Are you stupid? Kathy shouted angrily. Adriana stared at her friend. Noah lowered his head and prepared for a scandal. Kathy, why don't we go to the car? He didn't want a scene here at the hospital door. Sure, we'll get in the car. Kathy almost shouted, I'll get in, you and your kids, and your wife will go home. Adriana looked at Noah, Kathy, and the kids and didn't understand. Why are you sitting down? I still haven't realized that these are his children, that he lived with me all these years and walked around with horns and knew nothing. Kathy laughed, walked over to Noah, pushing with her shoulder, dumbfounded Adriana. Took the kids and walked to the car. Noah. Adriana's voice was shaking. Tell me it's not true, please. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She just couldn't believe what Kathy was saying right now. I'm sorry, go home. I'll come and tell you everything. So it's true. I'm sorry, I'll explain. Really, I'll come home. I'll pick up Betty and we'll leave. Vishnevsky, there's no need to explain, it's already clear. Adriana walked past a smiling Kathy, who was standing by her husband's car with the kids waiting. Go on, you belong in the countryside. Spat out, and she followed Adriana. Adriana got into the car. Tears filled her eyes. Her hands wouldn't listen. She couldn't put the key in the ignition. She watched as Noah opened the back doors of the car, took the babies in his arms while Kathy settled into the seat, and then handed the children to their mother. Adriana didn't even fully realize that she was more shocked that her Noah had cheated on her for several years and had a mistress, or that this mistress turned out to be a close best friend. The couple left and Adriana sat in the car in the parking lot, sobbing as the tears dried up. She started the car and went to get her sister. Now she would pack her things and go home. She really wanted to find an excuse for Noah, but she never could. A fleeting drunken liaison was one thing. She might have been able to forgive, but dating her friend behind her back for years. No, she'd never forgive that. And the fact that they didn't and couldn't have kids didn't excuse Noah. I didn't want to think about Kathy. How sneaky it was to look her in the eye, smile and tell her what a wonderful man she'd met. She was even going to give him children. Now it is clear why she so carefully hid her chosen one. Never once called him by name. She could barely keep from stripping off her clothes at school. And then, when Betty asked why her sister kept quiet, they arrived home. Adriana shut herself in the bathroom and let the tears flow. Then washed her face, got out and walked over to her sister, who was tucked away in her usual way, on her tablet. Betty, don't you want to go back to Kishinev? Is it something with your brothers? No. I just thought it might be hard for you at a new school, and everything is so familiar there. No, I don't want to. I like it here. Adriana sighed and sat next to me. Betty, you're an adult. Uncle Noah and I had a fight, and we can't live together anymore. We can go back to the village, but we can either look for something here. But it's a new school again. And we had a fight to make up. Betty took a break from the game and looked at her sister. You had a fight about me? No, not at all. Well, if you want to, we can stay at Aunt Kathy's. Adriana swallowed the lump in her throat and turned away so Betty wouldn't see her tears. Aunt Kathy had become a mom. She doesn't have much time for us right now, that's for sure. But are we going home? or are we looking for an apartment? I don't want to go home. I like it here. Okay, I get it. Adriana patted her sister on the head and left for the kitchen. Okay, she wanted to avoid a humiliating conversation with Noah and escape to the village. But apparently she would have to listen to him. About 20 minutes later, the door opened and Noah walked into the apartment. Betty tore herself away from the tablet. "Hi, Uncle Noah." Hearing no response, the girl sighed and went to her room. Adriana could hear her husband's deliberately slow change of clothes, stalling for time, afraid to go into the kitchen. Finally, apparently having gathered his courage, he went into the kitchen and sat down at the table. Adriana looked at him silently, trying to hold back tears. "I'm sorry, I've wanted to talk to you for a long time. As soon as I found out she was pregnant, I didn't want those babies. And how long did you have it?" Adriana was all the way home scrolling through the last few years and trying to figure out what and when had happened in their relationship that her husband had started cheating on her with her best friend. Noah lowered his eyes. 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, and you've been living with me the whole time, sharing a bed with me and traveling to this one yourself. Emotions spiraled out of control. Adriana was afraid to scream lest she startled Betty, so she covered her mouth with the palm of her hand and turned away. Counted to 10. Exhaled. "And when were you going to tell me when the kids were 16? "Not for a long time. But first Mom got sick, then Betty's funeral. I just couldn't start talking." "Okay, I get it. I'm not holding out on you anymore. Betty and I are leaving as soon as I find an apartment. The apartment is yours. I'll leave on my own." Noah stood up, reached for his wife, but his hands hung like whips. "I love you very much, Adriana." Adriana grinned bitterly. "Noah, you don't, do you?" Noah walked out of the house, not knowing where he should go now. He knew that Adriana would not forgive him. He realized that he had acted like an asshole. He went after his sexual urges. He could have just talked to the woman he loved and told her what he was missing. How disgusting. He couldn't change anything from himself. He could only sign everything over to Adriana so that she wouldn't worry about anything, renting a hotel room. Noah bought 2 bottles of whiskey and locked himself in the room. "Where is he?" Kathy burst into the apartment. Adriana looked at her friend and understood nothing. "Who is he?" "The light. Daddy's a wimp. He couldn't even leave you." "First of all, calm down, Betty, at home. And second of all, I have no idea where Noah thought you had him, honey. Apparently you have him." She pulled Adriana off the aisle. Came first to the kitchen, then to the hall, didn't hesitate to look in the bedroom and even Betty's room. "Go away. He's not here." Adriana opened the front door, crossed her arms over her chest, and waited for Kathy to leave. She walked over, stood across the room and looked at Adriana contemptuously. "You still don't seem to understand anything. Darling, I understand everything. And I'm not your darling. You've always had it nice and easy. I had to fight for the good life with my nails and teeth. School, institute. Even that asshole Talik at school only looked at you. And then Noah, he should have been mine from the beginning." Adriana looked at her ex-girlfriend and kept silent. "If it wasn't for me, you'd be sitting in your room, inventing your textbooks," Kathy whispered. "It was me who dragged you to Arbat. It was me who had to meet Noah. And besides, I always knew he liked me. And he always felt sorry for you. Go away, please." "No, dear friend, I haven't said everything yet. Remember that traffic light? You came out of the store all happy, with mushrooms and rattles, and didn't even notice me. I pushed you. I thought you'd die and Noah would be mine. But no, you did. Only you lost the baby." Kathy laughed. Adriana looked at Kathy like she was crazy. She was crazy. She'd ruined her baby, wanted to ruin her. And that's not all. "Honey, I got your hubby drunk and then dragged him to bed, even though he didn't put up much of a fight. Sleeping with someone like you is a pleasure." Adriana suddenly turned around. She felt someone glaring at her. Noah was standing on the landing. He had heard the whole conversation from beginning to end. Today he had decided to apologize to his wife on his knees. He did not warn her about his visit, hoping to catch her at home. Adriana, seeing her husband, said dryly, "Get out, both of you." "Adriana, let's talk. Get out." And slammed the door. Adriana, what's wrong? Betty looked out of the doorway. It's okay, Adriana said. It's definitely okay now. 5 years passed. Kathy raised the twins alone. They saw each other only once, when Adriana came to their father's funeral. Kathy didn't want to go, but Betty talked her into it. She was very good to Aunt Kathy. Kathy looked tired and miserable. Adriana knew that she had never been able to keep Noah with the children. Immediately after they left her house, they had gone their separate ways. Noah gave the children a last name and assigned maintenance. Kathy at first appealed to his paternal feelings. He threatened her with jail time for attempting to kill Adriana from the apartment he rented to her, and she had to move out. She had no choice but to move in with her parents, and she stays there. Adriana. Betty stayed in Moscow. Her sister was preparing to enter university. Life went on as usual. Adriana forgave her ex-husband and ex-girlfriend as much as she could, but she did not let anyone get close to her. Eventually, she decided that she was fine on her own. She'd already been an aunt twice. And judging by the fact that the twins had already found brides and were going to have a double wedding, she would be an aunt more than once. Adriana sat on a bench in the park and made notes in the documents. Hello. Can you help me? Adriana looked up and saw a handsome man about her age with a little girl in his arms. Yes, of course. Adriana put the documents aside and looked at the man questioningly. My daughter wants a hairstyle like yours. And he smiled so brightly that Adriana could not refuse. Mommy, look what Daddy and I bought you. 5-year-old Dasha ran into the kitchen with a huge basket of strawberries. I'm sure it's for me. Yeah. Daddy said you like strawberries a lot. I do. And I love my daughter and I love my daddy. Adriana hugged her daughter and looked tenderly at her husband. Then, in the park, they met Serge and his 2-year-old daughter. It turned out that he was raising his daughter alone. Her mom died in childbirth, so she just did her hair and they split up. And the next day, she was sitting on her favorite bench during lunch as usual, reading papers. Hello. She looked up and saw the couple from yesterday. Hi, Prina. She smiled at the little girl who was reaching out her little chubby hands to her. Getting your hair done again? No, not today, he smiled. Just thought we'd invite you to keep us company and feed the ducklings. I gladly answered Adriana and took the baby in my arms.